is 10 a.m. here. I'm actually on the west coast of USA, and really happy to see everyone out there. We've got Indexer Payne here as a guest today. He is a key part of the graph infrastructure. He's an indexer and has a indexer company. I guess you can call it a company, right, Payne? It is a StakeSquid,
Yep.
and we're really happy to have him on. And let's see. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick to make sure everyone's getting settled. Can everyone hear me? Let's see. Can everyone hear Payne?
Test, test.
Test, test. Let's see. It's always good to test. We will see here. Let's see. Slim, can you hear us? Slim's in the chat. Both are loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you, Slim. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for being here in the chat, in watching another episode of Graphic Builders Office Hours. And I want to introduce Payne here today. Payne is a good friend of mine. I've known him in the ecosystem for going on what, like 3 years now? Payne,
Yeah,
two
probably
years?
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 years. And Payne has been an incredible resource for me. He actually helped me spin up my first graph node when I was learning. I think that was about a year ago, year and a half ago. And I just want to introduce to the stage Payne. And if you could just introduce yourself, Payne, to everyone and give everyone a little bit about your background and how you got started really with the graph.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Alex. People know me by Payne. I've been with the graph since officially since November 2020. So, almost 4 years now. I initially joined in the mission control testnet back in 2020 in July as an indexer. We were gathering, like basically the graph back then was gathering people to test out their new protocol that they were about to launch in December later that year, basically. And I was part of a lucky few, like 40, 50 people, I believe, maybe more, that joined the quote unquote competition to like improve the protocol and the basically everything that the graph was building back in the day. And yeah, that was how I started. And I started working officially at the graph in November. And I initially was part of the graph, and then I switched to Azure Node, and now I'm with the Graph Foundation. My role is technically indexer relations, but I'm doing basically whatever there's needed on the indexing side, not just communication, but building tools, helping people out. That's what I did from early days, and I keep doing it.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome. I
yeah,
mean, you're super active, I got to say. I remember seeing you. I was with the startup before I started working with Edge and Node. I was with Soulbound Labs, which was building on subgraphs. Substreams weren't a thing back then, just subgraphs. And I remember seeing you in Discord all the time, and also a few other indexers. Do you remember the first other indexer that you met in the graph ecosystem?
hmm. Well, there was a bunch of them, but the ones that I clearly remember was obviously Jim from Wave 5. He was in the council for a while, and then it was Gary as well. Basically, every single person that I keep very close in touch right now. We also have a small little group chat called LFG Capital. They're all there basically. Every single one of them that we've met during mission control, and we've been in close touch with one another. We're still friends. We're still helping each other out when needed, and so on and so forth.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I remember you telling me when you first got introduced to this concept of the graph, you were quite junior in your programming and you self-taught yourself every step of the way. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that journey, kind of just essentially becoming one of the top tier indexers in this ecosystem and starting from zero, or maybe not zero?
It was
Just
it
explain
was
that journey.
zero.
It was
Yeah.
zero.
So yeah. So back in
Yeah.
early 2020, I was working at this company. We were like writing articles about startups, in crypto, of course. But so I was not that technical. But in the same company, there was this technical guy called Sebastian, and one day he said in our group chat, we were like 10 people, maybe 15 in there, in our internal chat, like, hey, I have this cool idea that I think like proof of stake protocols will be the next big shit, and we have to like be on top of it, and like we can start like making a career out of it, and so on and so forth. And I was basically the only one from that entire group that said, well, sure, yeah, let's see what we can build. And I had zero knowledge of any kind of Linux environment. I was a computer nerd. I know I love computers. I love technology, but um, I never touched the side of servers and infrastructure or enterprise grade hardware, or like I didn't even know how to change a directory in Linux. Right, like I was
Mm-hmm.
that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the way you have to start with this kind of stuff is to just jump head first and see what sticks. And that's what I did. And I started basically with, like, I obviously, I was super lucky to have Sebastian because he was super technical. He was writing like very technical article, like, yeah, he was like very deep into tech side of startups and everything. And he spotted a bunch of like really early stage protocols. We were like quite early in Solana as validators, but before that, we also we had participated in the Mina testnet, I think, where we learned a bunch of stuff, and I think Cello, if I recall correctly, or
Mm-hmm.
something else with C, and then it was Solana. But yeah, all of those were like pretty easy to run. Even
Mm-hmm.
Solana, as surprising as it sounds, it wasn't that bad. But I was super lucky to get to ask Sebastian all these questions, and I have a bunch of more people that around me that I could just bother with my questions non-stop. I was not afraid to ask questions, and I feel like this is one of the things that makes you grow. The first of all, like ask any kind of questions that you have, but don't just ask aimlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Try to like take notes all the time. Try to improve all the time. Asking without learning is basically like it doesn't help. But if you put all the time in
That's a
and
quote right
you,
there. Asking
yeah,
without learning. I like that.
yeah, you have to
Asking without
like
learning. Yeah.
you have to ask. You have to ask to improve and not just get you out of sticky situations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Having a intent with the questions is, I've noticed those that are lifelong learners find intent before talking. And
yeah,
so,
and like the whole thing that pushed me forward was the fact that I find like every single like side of technology very interesting, and I wanted to learn more about like anything that I was touching. And um, unfortunately, back in the day, we didn't even have ChatGPT, so like I was yeah, I was forced to like search everything on Google, and like there was no easy or um like I don't know how to call it. There was no easy answer to anything. You have to like, you had to build. You had to iterate on whatever you were trying to learn until
yeah.
it worked, because you
Yeah.
had no other alternatives but to do
Yeah.
it if you wanted
Yeah.
to succeed.
And how long do you think it took you until you felt not just junior, but competent with graph
Oh,
nodes, self
I
teaching
still
yourself?
don't feel comfortable. Like I feel like I have such a big imposter syndrome
Mm,
being here, to be quite honest.
that's, and I relate to that so much. I feel that the imposter syndrome is an effect of the respect of the knowledge of the people around you. I have so much respect for the effort and the knowledge of the people around me. And I think that's healthy. I think that's not a bad thing to have a bit of imposter syndrome just because you know what has been done around you already, and there's just so much respect for that. I think that's a fair thing to have for life, honestly. Just to feel a little bit of that, that's okay.
Yeah.
I have a question in chat here, and I think this is a question that I've had for you, and now that you can share with the audience, where, as a zero technical dev background, would you recommend somebody to start with to be an indexer? And then I'll actually tag on a second question with that. Where would you recommend someone with technical background to become an indexer? Where should either of those parties start?
So, someone with zero technical background. Yeah, I'm watching the chat right now. It's probably the like not the mainnet repository, but the testnet one. For
Shout
sure,
out
you don't
Slim.
want to
Nice
put
job.
like 100 kGRT and trying to like play around with your money.
Yeah.
But I'm working. Well, it's on the list to write a new guide for how to set up the StakeSquid stack, and like also have a video series of like how to operate an indexer.
Mm-hmm.
It just I had to focus on other things like implementing tap and building a bunch of other stuff on the side, but that's on the same like it's in the pipeline for this year, hopefully. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is a video on how to set up the indexer stack from February 2021, but I don't think that's still any kind of relevant to this day. But yeah, ideally it would be to like read the documentation of it. Like even like the testnet Docker, even though the documentation is a little bit outdated, it still makes kind of more sense than not reading anything, if that makes
Sure.
sense to you.
Yep. Yep. I'm dropping those links in the chat right now. Also, Slim is a shout out to Slim. Thank you so much. And the onboarding for a so basically what you're saying is for an experienced developer as well as a unexperienced developer, this is a good place to start. Both of these are reasonable
Yeah, but
places.
the thing is, you have to um, like you kind of have to also like the running an indexer on the graph is not an easy task. I would recommend starting with like trying to spin up an RPC, for example, like an archive node for
Mm,
Ergon for Ethereum
okay.
mainnet.
Okay.
Like easy tasks, you can easily follow. Yeah, you can follow the InfraDAO RPC guides. Something that would
Got it.
basically keep you like put you on the right track to learn the things before you jump into the graph, because like the graph uses all these things by default.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, the graph basically the graph node connects to RPC data to ingest new blocks, see what's in those blocks if it's anything relevant to whatever subgraphs you are syncing, and then storing that data in the subgraph. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's how it works. So you have to understand the underlying infrastructure, like architecture of the whole shebang before you even start
Yeah.
touching
And
anything the graph related.
I feel like that methodology applies to my own subgraph development knowledge and learning subgraph, learning blockchain. I remember I used to start with code. I'd be like, I'm just going to write a subgraph and hop in with code. And within, 10, 20 minutes, I'd be into a corner. And so now when I design a subgraph, I don't touch code for maybe 3 to 5 days. I'm like literally like drawing it out and understanding where things go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that maybe you could agree with that, disagree with that, in terms of just like knowing what you're dealing with first before you start
Yes,
actually getting into things.
I agree that that really helps, and that's why in the testnet and the mainnet Docker stacks that I have in the README or like the documentation of those, there's an overview of the entire architecture. If you let me see if I can find the exact page. I think
Sure.
it's in getting started in the middle of the page. There's like a yeah, a graphical overview from the
Mm.
mission control days.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be updated now with tap, but that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing I would present for someone that wants to run an indexer. they need to understand like the entire architecture of the infrastructure, so that they can easily piece together all the like puzzle pieces.
Yeah,
Because
that
it's
makes
literally a
sense.
puzzle. If you look at if you look at the image that I sent, there is literally just it's a puzzle. They have multiple pieces that are working together to accomplish one task, which is to serve the data for like
Yeah.
Web3 internet.
Yeah, it really is a puzzle. That's a good way to put it because, I mean, the whole goal of blockchain, and at least building on blockchain, is modularity and understanding that concept from the chain all the way to the pixel is such a journey. When you're plugging and playing with different things and seeing where things are able to work, where they don't work, it is a journey for an indexer, subgraph developer, for blockchain developer, you name it. I feel like this modularity is unlocks a lot of things, and it requires a certain amount of awareness of so many things at once,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. I want to ask for the time that you've been an indexer. How many years have you been an indexer?
Um, 4.
4 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
4 years. How does it feel? Do you remember, one of your first subgraphs that you were indexing that wasn't maybe one of your own or someone else's that you knew? Do you remember that? And then how has that changed throughout the years and what that means to you when you choose as an indexer to say, hey, I want to index this
Yeah.
subgraph? How has that feeling changed from day one up until now? What does that mean
So
to you?
back in the mission control days, when we had those like we were helping out the graph team to build their protocol. Basically, we started small. We started from a pool of 3 subgraphs to choose from. Well, not to choose from. We had to sync all of them, and one of them was gravity. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
everyone uses that as an example.
Yep.
The
Gravatars.
the most used example subgraph in the world. And then we had, I believe, Moloch DAO and one more, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
really remember exactly which subgraph it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like there was no protocol involved. There was no there was no GRT back then, not even a
Mm-hmm.
testnet. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
there was only the graph node and us as operators that needed to learn how the graph node was working before we even touched anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
it all like
Yeah.
if you don't know how to operate the graph node at like standalone level, then you don't have to like you can't know how to operate on the network when all the things need to be automated, right? So what we did was basically we started. I don't even have the commands, unfortunately, but there was like I think I have them somewhere pinned in the indexer software, I believe. Yes, there you go. So let me link it to you in the chat. So if you go here in the indexer software, you get to see how we interacted with the graph node. Back in the day, we manually had to create, deploy, reassign, or remove subgraphs with a bunch of JSON RPC commands and HTTP post command, basically, to a graph node. There was no interface to do it. There was no indexer agent to automatically pick those subgraphs for you, or whatever, or like any any kind of tools that was doing this automatically. Basically, there was nothing. Um, yeah, and we still use those things when we need to uh, get unstuck from certain situations. There's still like not like no amount of like, because those commands that you see there is exactly what. So when you create a subgraph on the subgraph studio, it's the same commands that get published, like sent into a graph node that the
Mm.
studio is using. It's the same commands that are being sent by the indexer agent when you deploy a new subgraph locally, and so on and so forth. That's
Gotcha.
the
So these are
backbone of
these
the
these are
graph
the
node.
commands right here,
Yes.
and And so this was a long time ago. I mean, 4
Yeah,
years ago is basically
in
50 years ago.
July 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically 50 years ago in crypto time.
Yeah.
And so this is when you would, how did that feel to have one of these subgraphs hop onto your indexing stack back then? Was it like kind of this new paradigm that this is actually working and this is something new for you?
Yeah, it was so weird in a way because like I was not used to like I was used to like Solana and the other protocols, the other like things that we were running validators for,
Hmm.
because those things never required more than a bunch of clicks and it worked, right?
Hmm.
With the
Right.
graph, you have to like put together the graph infrastructure. Well, back in the day, it was just the graph node, and then you had to sync up an Ethereum archive node, which back in the
Hmm.
day there was only there were two options. Both
Hmm.
of them were like pretty big. It was Ethereum, Open Ethereum,
Hmm.
which was running off of uh, parity architecture, and then there was Geth.
Hmm.
There was no Aragon. Well, it was Aragon, but it was called Turbo Geth and was like so full of bugs nobody wanted to touch.
Hmm.
Um, until later on, I started playing around with Turbo Geth, and I was actually the only one in the testnet, in the mission control testnet, that was running off of an Aragon node, well, a Turbo Geth node,
Hmm.
um, without any kind of like I was only running that thing and no backups whatsoever. I was like that kind of a degenerate, but it worked out. I worked out with the Aragon team to nail a bunch of bugs, and now we
Hmm.
have the Aragon. It's not thanks to me or anything, but I managed to like report back a lot of problems. And also in like I chatted back and forth with the GraphNode team to see if there's anything we can improve in the GraphNode when it comes to supporting TurboGuest. And if you go to the Aragon Discord, I have like 800 messages in there. So yeah,
Yep. You're famous.
yeah, it was quite a fun time, to be honest.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Can I ask a lighter question? I want to ask about why the name StakeSquid. I've never
It was
asked you
just
this.
totally random. We were like Sebastian asked a friend of ours what would he name a company like this, and he just said
Hmm.
said Steak Squid,
That's it.
and Steak Squid was yeah,
There you go. Just a random two words together. I've never asked you
yeah,
that question, but I've wondered that for some time.
yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean,
now,
Slim Chance also knows the guy that named it Steak Squid. We had dinner with him in Singapore
oh, got it, got it.
one of
That's
the
great.
days. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I wanted to ask from your perspective where the graph is headed, what your thoughts are now that Sunrise has been achieved, now that the network is production and the option for decentralized indexed data. What are your thoughts about the next steps for the graph? And what are your thoughts about yourself for people who are building with permissionless, decentralized indexers such as yourself?
Um, we need more automation on the indexing side. A lot
Okay.
more automation and tools to support this automation. I feel like
Okay.
we're
Could
heading
you
in
go?
the right direction, but we need to make sure that like we already have our plate full of all those RPCs that we need to take care of, and we need to make sure that they don't fall off a cliff, right? When there's a
Hmm.
hard fork, you have to update the software and monitor it. Um, there's certain chains that like to just blow
And
up randomly, and you
really
have to,
quickly,
yeah,
could you speak when you say the word automation? What do you mean
yeah.
by that specifically?
Like syncing and deploying new subgraphs, allocating to new subgraphs, in like spinning up new archive nodes for new chains. That could be also automated. What else? Um, hmm. indexes creation at the database level, because
Gotcha.
we are
And
playing in a very weird scenario where you cannot control how the queries are being sent by the customers. The queries themselves are
yeah.
the translation from a GraphQL query to a SQL query that you have absolutely no control over the SQL part.
Sure.
You can
Sure.
improve up to some point the GraphQL part, but you
Mm-hmm.
cannot improve how that is being translated into SQL. The only thing you can do as an indexer is to build indexes for things that are slow. And I feel like this is such a great opportunity to build something that actually builds indexes for those queries in hands-free manner with LLMs or something. It has to be a way, because
Gotcha.
that's super time consuming for many reasons, because you have to
Okay.
monitor how, like when you apply an index to a query, to a database, basically to a table, you have to monitor how that affected initially. Like you have to explain that to have like an explanation of like how much time was spent on certain areas, and then have to compare it, and if it's better just keep it. But then you have to, the more indexes you have, the slower the subgraphs are being written in the disks. So there's always a compromise. So I feel like this is such a great opportunity um, to build automation tools around, because it's super needed, and there's nothing on the market that does this for you, as far
Awesome.
as I'm aware.
Yeah. I mean, I know as a direction that I'm going internally at Edge and Node is uh, finding processes that are inefficient and finding ways to improve them. And these are things that we're already doing. And it's just how can we make these just better? And
Mm-hmm.
automations, I'm personally looking at automations any way that I can. I found a few different ways to pull that off. So I hear you. I feel like with this shift of the graph and achieving sunrise, it's kind of like, all right, we have a chance to take a breath, look back at what we've achieved, look back at the processes that we have in place, both from a technical stack, from interpersonal stack, for the entire network, and saying, all right, how can we take what we've done, make the systems that we want more efficient, more automated, and then how can we go ahead and redirect when we are redirecting? So it's a kind of exciting time for me personally. Um, and I'll dovetail that into another question here about kind of the graph as a whole. If you could have a magic wand, Payne, where would you want the graph to go in the next? Well, I mean, it's been around for 5, 6 years now. How long uh, in the future do you want to look? Let's say 5 years in the future. If you could snap a magic wand or snap your fingers, what would the graph be in 5 years?
That's a really good question. I want to expand beyond subgraphs.
Mm. Okay.
Um, Wingardium Leviosa. Yeah, I want to expand beyond subgraphs. Maybe
Mm.
like not just substreams and Firehose, but also maybe serving raw SQL data, serving um, JSON RPC data from archive nodes, because we all have like tons of archive nodes. Some of us have like multiple pairs of them running
Mm.
in the background behind the load balancer,
Mm-hmm.
and we can all share this data um, with um, with people that need JSON RPC data, and we can build good things around this. And what else? Off-chain data for sure.
Yeah,
That's again
I
something
second
that
that.
yeah. There's so
Yeah.
many, like anything data related, like data pipelines for um, like like competing with Dune, for example, requires certain aspects of data analytics pipelines, which is being covered by the SQL direct SQL access, I guess,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a bunch of other things that I have a feeling it's all converging in the right direction
Yeah. Yeah.
slowly,
I
but yeah.
feel similarly. Yeah, I feel similarly.
I think we're going to get there. Not sure if it's in 5 years or like whatever, but yeah, I'm willing
Yeah.
to bet. I mean, I'm already betting quite a lot.
Literally.
With yeah, literally. Because we've like at StakeSquid we spent like $250,000 worth on servers, and we're
Yeah,
still like going to buy new ones fairly soon.
that's amazing.
Um,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. I want to speak directly to the audience here. This is Graph Builders office hours. So we've got builders who are building subgraph substreams, who are building on top of subgraphs and substreams. Is there anything that you as an indexer would like to say to the audience who are building on subgraphs, substreams, powered subgraphs that you
Yes.
may be indexing?
Learn how to optimize your subgraphs to help us not struggle with um, bad subgraphs. There's a bunch of badly written subgraphs that affect our entire infrastructure
Mm,
in the way that they write the data on disk, or they're being queried very badly.
mm.
Try
Are there any
to
specific tips
adhere
on
to.
like what's the optimization tip? Like if you can give one optimization tip that's
I
specific
have
that
no
people
idea in
should.
terms of like subgraph development.
Sure.
Maybe Slim Chance can share some things, but
Yeah.
I actually don't know. I don't want to put him on the spotlight here, but
I do
uh,
have the subgraph best practices 1 through 4. I always reference those. Essentially,
yeah, that's
bytes as
perfect.
IDs, and using derived from for relationships. I mean, there's all these different optimizations that I try to get out there.
Do
In
we have
terms of
anything for queries? Like how to not query your subgraph like an idiot and destroy the entire infrastructure for.
you bet. Let's. We have querying best practices. Let me find that right now. Best practices. Here we
Yeah,
go.
there's another thing,
This.
avoiding block and call handlers. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you think of those ETH calls? Those declared ETH calls. How are those doing for you?
I actually don't know how to differentiate between subgraphs that are not using those.
Gotcha.
Because I don't look
That's.
at the subgraph code when I deploy stuff. I only know that
Mm,
this is going to make me money or this is not going
mm,
to make me money as an indexer. But the moment
gotcha.
I deploy it and I say that it's like taking a very long time to sync, then yeah, I don't.
Nice.
I simply don't allocate to it, no matter how much money it's making.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And Slim just dropped in chat. Declarative ETH calls are great. I have looked at some comparisons. I know we're looking to get more metrics and more. I talked with Paka recently, and his team. By the way, audience, Paka is the GraphNode PM, the project manager. He's looking to get more metrics on the performance of GraphNode specifically, and so we're going to be able to have that out there soon. So, Payne, how you doing, buddy? Is there anything else that you'd like to cover in this interesting chat? I feel like this was good that the builders get to know another indexer out there. We had actually Derek on last week, and I think it's good that builders get to know this is a permissionless indexing protocol that we can have indexers around the world just hop in and have decentralized indexing. So I think it's helpful. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with the builders out there who are building on the data that you are indexing?
Um, I actually don't know what to say there. I have a question for the audience.
Okay.
Um, like um, like how if you could improve one thing in the whole subgraph development slash indexing space, what would you change?
That's a great
Maybe
question.
we get to
That's a,
hear some really good feedback in the chat
if you
and
could
we can
change one
forward it
thing.
to. Yeah.
Let's see. I know what I would change in terms of like the first thing that comes to mind is like I think quite simple in terms of the CLI experience. I'm always using other tools instead of our CLI, and I actually talked with a few different developers on our CLI team, and they're going to be working on those things. Basically, a more seamless startup. So the subgraph has helpers baked in, has these different tools, but that's just me. Let's see what answers are in the chat here. So far, no answers, but they are chatting. We're having chats.
And that's good. That's
Audience,
good.
audience, anyone out there who has any ideas how they would improve things? I like a better CLI experience to have more just clear tooling. That's just me, just starting with a subgraph and having more powerful helpers, more utils that are used pretty much standard across the ecosystem, the get or create, um, all these different handlers, not handlers, but helpers. Chittibum, I see Chittibum jumping in the chat here. Oh, nope. And anything else I would wish as a subgraph substream developer? Um, I think I would like to see. I mean, I do see with subgraph composition coming in, I see a need for a redesign of Explorer to make it more clear that these subgraphs can be layered on top of each other. I'm quite excited about subgraph
Yes.
composition. And they're so right now, I think that was something that we've done as a protocol, which is fantastically a huge achievement to create a standard of data indexing in an entirely new ecosystem, which is Web3. I mean, I see subgraphs everywhere. However, composability is something that is still not there. And I think making it visually understandable that these are Lego blocks would be super, super helpful just from a development standpoint. That you could say this data set, the
When
schema.
is it that coming?
Paka said soon.
Okay.
So I'm going
How
to
would
just
it
keep on
work
saying
at
soon.
how would it work for an indexer
That's a
when
good question.
because
And
as far as I'm aware, there has not been zero discussions about this in the indexing community. And
yeah,
if we're going to be slapped with another feature that is not complete in terms of like indexer tools that we use, then I bet people will be angry again.
I don't know. And if you want to reach out to Paka, feel free. I'd be curious
I
to
have
actually
to.
be a fly on the wall on that conversation, um, because I want to hear exactly how they're doing. I know they're stitching schemas, and there will be. Derek actually had an interesting post on it in Twitter. Let's see if I could find that right now. It was talking about what could be coming out in his mind with
Mm-hmm.
composability. Here, let me share this in. I'll share my screen here so we can all do this together. We're all in this together. Here we go. Share screen and window. And let's just do the entire screen so I can not worry about this. All right. Here it is. A new pattern I'd recommend. There was a tweet from Graph Devs. Subgraph composition is coming, and
Oh,
here we
20
are.
hours ago. Okay.
Yep. New pattern I recommend. Subgraph A is raw events and any ETH calls you have to make. So potentially a slower subgraph because ETH calls. A schema should mirror events. Subgraph B handles all transformation and has desired end schema. If your transformation logic has an issue, you only retransform events rather than re-extracting the events. Haven't tested this personally. It seems like a no-brainer. Essentially, just creating responsibilities and abstracting anything that might be a little bit more cumbersome away
Mm-hmm.
from where you're querying. That makes sense.
That
I like
makes
that.
total sense. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So yeah, this is. I mean, there should be composability coming out soon. I'll keep on saying that from Paka. It's soon. But essentially, what that means is we're going to be able to take a subgraph as a data source. Let's just say the Uniswap subgraph, and use that as a data source and plug it in and take all of the database that has been already indexed and already built, and then build another subgraph on top of that and transform the data in unique ways. So it
I'm
creates these.
curious if you have to
Yeah.
duplicate that data in order to like build on top of it, or like how does it work? Because we're already struck. Like I'm telling you, I'm thinking the top 1500 subgraphs,
Yeah.
and that's like
Yeah.
120 terabytes of data. That's
Mm-hmm.
running on
Mm-hmm.
NVMe storage. That's like
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
as
mean,
long as we keep like we make sure that we don't bloat the damn storage, like we
sure.
keep bloating the damn storage up, then like I'd be happy not to like have to duplicate that subgraph in order to like work on it. Because imagine
Yeah.
100 people making 100 like changes to Uniswap.
Sure. Sure. And from what I understand, and this is just you know conversations with him, I do believe they are having the intent is similar, I should say, Payne, in that they are
Okay.
having the intent of saying we don't want to duplicate more data. They want to have a subgraph be the subgraph and subgraphs be built on top, but that actual first layer of subgraph should be not copied and pasted. From what I understand, I hope
Mm-hmm.
I'm right. I hope I'm right for your sake.
We shall see.
We shall see. But anyways, Payne, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your sharing your journey into becoming an indexer, not just an indexer, but one of the best indexers that is in the network. I keep on seeing you do very well with your stack, and I'm really, really happy to see you contributing. And everyone out there building, this is another indexer out there that is permissionlessly indexing your subgraphs and substrings. And so that's a huge asset to the graph. The network is, in my opinion, the product of the graph. It is the key part of the graph. There's a decentralized, permissionless group of people that are taking data that you want and doing the work for you. And so, shout out and cheers to Payne and all the other indexers out there. Thank you for what you guys are doing, man.
Thank you for having me. But yeah, like it was quite the journey so far, and
Yeah.
I hope it's still going to continue as it is because it's super thrilling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Payne, if you could just stay on, keep this tab open, and I'm just going to disconnect the stream, but we'll stay here on the chat. Everyone out there who's on the stream, thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday, and happy building out there. Take care, everyone.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, so you can just stay here, Payne.
Yeah.
We're going to let this upload.